What would it be like to start a game company with only beginners? Let's talk about it. Hi there. I've been making video games professionally for 25 years. I'm here to share what I know about how games are made. I came across this post in the r/game dev subreddit from Marshall Theo 1. In it, Marshall says that they are an animator and they want to get a team of newbies around them to make a game. The plan would be in 3 parts. First, get the team together to make some small games and build a community and learn to work as a team. Second, they would learn to expand their skill set to improve at rigging, animating, and modeling. And then third, they would feed the money that they make back into the business and try to build a game company. Critically, and this is the most important part of the post, Marshall doesn't want to quit their day job, so they would be doing this in their spare time. The post ends by saying, "I know it's not a perfect plan, but what do you guys think?" Many of you may be wondering the same thing. You might be an animator, an artist, a programmer, a musician, or maybe you're an avid gamer and you're willing to work hard. So asking a question like this, it's an indication you want to live the dream of making your own video game and you want to find a viable path towards doing it as a career. In this video, I'm not going to address the different paths to becoming a game developer. That can be the topic of another video. Today, we're going to talk specifically about the question whether a small group of people could get together and start a video game company in their spare time. Starting a game team typically requires 3 distinct skill sets. There are, of course, exceptions to this 3 skill set outline, but I'm going to describe the most common case. Skill set number 1, you need a programmer. This is somebody who can write code or script the game. Somebody who will create the logic to make the game work. Skill set number 2, you'll need an artist. Somebody who can create the visuals of the game. And skill set number 3, you'll need a designer, somebody who'll make decisions about how the game works, what the game is about, and what types of interactions the player will have with the game. I mentioned that these are 3 different skill sets, but that doesn't mean it needs to be 3 different people. In fact, it's very common on a small team for the role of designer to be filled by somebody who's also doing coding or doing the art. Beyond these 3 roles, there are of course many other skill sets in making a game, such as audio, music, and publishing, but the programming, art, and design, these are going to be your most fundamental. What happens if your group doesn't have all 3 of these skill sets? Let's talk more about the case where you're an artist. Suppose you can't find a programmer, but you really want to make a game. This can be difficult, but it is doable. The easiest if you have some technical chops. Modern tools like Unity and Unreal are so beginner friendly, and there are so many tutorials and guides available on the internet, I truly believe that any motivated person could learn to do the basics. That said, if you really want to lower the technical difficulty of your project, you could consider using engines that come with loads of functionality built in, such as RPG Maker or RPG in a Box. Both of these provide a lot of the functionality for making a basic RPG game. So how about the flip side? What if you're a programmer and you don't have an artist? If you're in a situation in which you want to get your game going on your own, you can get pretty far having an art style that is focused on simple visuals or geometric patterns. One of the important rules of game development is lean into your strengths. So if you're a good artist, you should find ways to show off your good art. But if you're a programmer and you don't have an artist, then you want to model yourself after games that have found success without intensive art requirements. You could go with a blocky retro style or a geometric look that focuses on some programmatic visual effects and programmatic ways to create visual interest, such as bloom effects. Another option for small teams is to purchase assets from an asset store. If you go this route, try to maintain some level of visual consistency. When assets come from multiple sources, your game can risk losing a visual identity. A game that mixes many different art styles can be more off-putting than a low-fidelity game that is consistent throughout. Another emerging option is to use AI art. This is a rapidly evolving area, and the option for small teams to use AI art is on the horizon. At the time of this recording, AI art still doesn't replace the value of a dedicated artist for most projects, but I expect it to become increasingly an option as the technology improves. If your team does go this route, I would remind you again of the general advice. Lean into your strengths. Make sure you understand the strengths and weaknesses of your art generation tools and pipeline so you can take them into account for your game design. Typically, when a group of people want to make a game without quitting their day jobs, it's because they don't have prior experience and they can't afford to take the risks. They want to minimize their risk. Here's the deal. Making a video game company has your risk proportional with your chance of success. If you take on more risk, you have a better chance to succeed. So whether to stay in your day job or not depends on how likely you think you are to succeed and how much risk you can afford to take on. So now we can answer the original question. Should a group of friends keep their current jobs but try to make a game together? Assuming you and your friends have art, programming, and design covered, the answer is still yes and no. Now, to be clear, this approach can and has worked, but it's a difficult road. While we could look at times that it succeeded, there's a survivorship bias at work. Survivorship bias is when we're trying to decide whether a particular process is good or not, but we make that evaluation based only on looking at those who were successful, because those who were unsuccessful are invisible to us in our data set. Yes, we could look at successful games made by small groups of beginners and they've shipped, but that ignores the thousands of teams that fall apart before finding success. It really takes a long time to make a game, and what often happens is a small group that decide to keep their day jobs, well, the participants lose motivation over the course of the project before it's done. Suppose you were to pick a small scope game and you think it's going to take about a year to make. The likelihood that all of you are going to put in equal amounts of work with similar amounts of intensity and stay engaged with the project over a whole year is pretty low. What happens more often than not is somebody who's, really excited and some other people are less excited. A few months into the project, you start seeing less output from some of your team members and the project starts to fall off. Part of the challenge of making games isn't just about the art, tech, and design of the game, it's also building a group of people who are committed to finishing that game together. Focus on finding some people you can make even one game with. That's hard enough. Focus also on learning and developing your skills without worrying as much about whether you could start a company. Let's circle back to risk one more time. If you keep your day job, you're lowering your overall life risk, but you're reducing the chance you can successfully finish a game. So how do we increase the chance of success? Here's two ideas. The first, leverage game jams. Yes, game jams are a great place to hone your skills, but it's also a great way to get to know other people. You'll see what it's like to work with them, and if that works out, do a second jam with them. Something that lasts for maybe a month. And if that works out, now test the waters and see if you can make a game together over a 6-month period. The second option, particularly if you're real life friends with a really tight crew, would be to go ahead and devote yourselves full time. I want to be clear, if you have never finished at least a small scope game from start to finish, I wouldn't quit your day job just yet. But if you have a few games under your belt and you really want to take a big swing at making a commercial game, try to find a way to give you and your team at least 1 year of runway to make a game. Scope accordingly. Unfortunately, there's rarely whole teams of people who are able to do this. A year is a long time, but if you're not able to self-fund development, another option I know that has worked for some people is to look for grants. Many states or countries have programs that fund game development if you're willing to move there. Making games is hard, but you can do it if you put in the time and effort to get it done.